Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate. I had a hard time deciding between the two versions of Alucard that I came up with, so I figured I'd take the opportunity to show all of you on YouTube exactly what the podcast-style videos that are normally exclusive to my patrons look like. The other version should already be up as a normal Dungeons & Dragonfly episode, so make sure to check that out as well. They are actually different builds. So what do we want from this build? Well, we need a bunch of shadowy vampire powers. Most importantly, our near indestructibility. We also need to make sure we can shape our shadows into a good dog best friend to send after our enemies. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine. We actually don't have any multi-classing minimums this time. Strength is number 1. Alucard is a vampire. Vampires are inhumanly strong. This will be capped by the end of the build. Charisma's next. He's a charming guy who's also terrifying as fuck. Then Dexterity's 13, so we can actually aim those huge hand cannons we carry around. Wisdom is 12. You pick up a few things over the course of a 500-year life, and Alucard was religious to begin with. Then Constitution is only 10. We'll be getting some things to make us nigh unkillable, so this doesn't need to be super high. And finally, we'll dump Intelligence. Alucard's not an idiot, of course, but he also tends to not learn about things that don't interest him. Dampier are the best vampire race, so we'll use that, bumping our Constitution to 12 and rounding off our Strength. We get 60 feet of dark vision, an extra 5 feet of walking speed, and can climb without spending extra movement. Once we hit level 3, that upgrades too, so we can Spider-Man that shit and just run on ceilings. We don't breathe. Our ancestral legacy gives us any 2 skills, I'll say Athletics and Intimidation, and we have a bite attack, as you might expect from a vampire. That uses our Constitution to attack, does a d4 of damage, has advantage if we're at half health or less, and we can empower ourselves after hitting with it a number of times per day equal to our proficiency. When we do, we take however much piercing damage the bite did, and either heal ourselves for that much, or add that number to our next attack or ability check. As an agent of the Hellsing organization, we qualify for the Demir Operative background, giving us proficiency in stealth and deception, and adding a bunch of cool spy spells to our spellcasting list. Now, the other build is kind of an unholy mashup of multiclassing, but this one goes much simpler. 20 straight levels of Druid. Our Druid skills are Arcana and Religion. We learn the secret Druid language, and we get a bunch of spells. Resistance adds a d4 to a saving throw, and Primal Savagery attacks with our claws or teeth, dealing up to 4d10 acid damage on a hit. This is a spell attack, though, which uses our Lackluster Wisdom, so we'll get some normal strength-based attacks later on. Druids prepare from their entire list, so we can pick up Charm Person to hypnotize folks, Disguise Self and Sleep from the Demir list, Detect Magic to find our undead prey, Protection from Evil and Good so they have disadvantage to hit us, Jump and Longstrider for vampire agility, and Fog Cloud to make a dramatic entrance. Second level druids can wild shape into creatures CR 1/4 or less that can't fly or swim, so no bats just yet, but wolves are also a classic vampire shapeshift animal, so we got that going for us. We'll also join the Circle of Spores. It takes a wee bit of reflavoring, but this actually works great for us, giving us a cloud of shadows to lash out with and halo of spores. Whenever a creature moves within 10 feet of us, or starts its turn there, we can use our reaction to force it to make a Constitution save, dealing 1d4 necrotic damage on a fail. We learn Chill Touch for a long-range Shadow Bolt that deals up to 4d8 necrotic damage on a hit, inhibits healing, and gives undead disadvantage to attack us. And we're a Symbiotic Entity. As an alternative to Wild Shaping, we can expend a use of our Wild Shape to release a restraint level and become Shadowy. We get temporary HP equal to 4 times our Druid level, then for 10 minutes, or until those temporary HP are gone, we roll double the dice for our Halo of Spores damage, and our melee weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage. Do note that this doesn't buff our Bite's Empower function, since it's necrotic damage, and the Empower works off the piercing damage that the bite deals. At 3rd level, Blindness, Deafness, and Gentle Repose come from our circle, then Pass Without Trace and Detect Thoughts are from the Demir list. We can end harmful effects on ourselves with Lesser Restoration, get advantage on checks using the ability score of our choice with Enhanced Ability, paralyze an enemy for easier feeding with Hold Person, or use Wither and Bloom for an AoE attack with our shadows that then drains vitality and heals us. Our Wild Shape improves at 4th level, so we can turn into CR 1/2 creatures, though still no flight, so still no bats. And we'll grab the Fighting Initiate feat for the unarmed fighting style. Our unarmed strikes deal a d6 of damage, or a d8 if we have both hands free, and we can deal a d4 each turn to a creature we have grappled. That all uses strength, and unarmed strikes do count as melee weapon attacks, so we can get the extra damage off Symbiotic Entity. We also get another cantrip. How about Guidance, the ability check version of Resistance? For 3rd level spells, Animate Dead creates ghouls out of the people we kill. Gaseous Form is actually on both our Circle list and the Dimir list, and turns us into mist so we can float around and pass through cracks and such. Then we get Conjure Animals to get our dog. We can summon a single beast of CR2, or a number of beasts with a lower CR. So we can get 2 of the CR1 Direwolf, or since we're already reflavoring things, why not 1 CR2 Cave Bear, flavored to take the form of a wolf? At 6th level, our Halo of Spores damage goes up to 1d6, and we can make ghouls a lot quicker with fungal infestation. As a reaction to a small or medium humanoid or beast dying near us, we can turn it into a zombie, though it only has 1 HP and lasts for a maximum of an hour. We can do this a number of times per day equal to our wisdom modifier, so once per day. 4th level spells, we get Blight to drain the moisture, or, blood, from a creature, dealing 8d8 necrotic damage if they fail a constitution save, half on a success. Confusion makes a group of creatures act randomly if they fail a wisdom save. No, we're not making them check their privilege, though. Arcane Eye is from the Dimir list and opens our 3rd eye, making an invisible sensor that we can move around and see through. We can turn into shadows to escape bonds and flow over terrain with freedom of movement, harden our skin to have incoming bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage with Stone Skin, and buff ourselves up with Guardian of Nature, which makes us 10 feet faster, doubles the range of our dark vision, gives us advantage on strength saves, and adds an extra d6 of force damage to our melee weapon attacks. At 8th level, our wild shape improves one last time, so now we can turn into CR1 beasts, even ones that fly, which means bats at long last. And if that's not enough, ask your GM if you can turn into a swarm of bats. That's more in flavor, and they're only CR1 quarter. We'll take our 2nd feat here as well, Gunner, which rounds off our dexterity, gives us proficiency with firearms, along with letting us ignore their loading property, and making it so we don't have disadvantage on ranged attacks while next to an enemy. That's not much use to a bat, of course, though. It's a simple matter of weight ratios. A 1-ounce rodent cannot carry a 13-pound pistol. Not a lot of 5th level spells I want, but Cloud Kill and Contagion are our circle spells, if we ever need to make a cloud of corrosive smoke or inflict a disease with a touch. Actually, one of the diseases makes the target bleed uncontrollably, so hey, that's a plus for us. There's also Greater Restoration to purge ourselves of more serious conditions and curses than Lesser Restoration can handle. At 10th level, our Halo of Spores damage goes up to a d8, and we can set up an area of shadows to attack. As a bonus action, while in our symbiotic entity form, we can create a 10-foot cube of shadows within 30 feet for a minute. Any creature that enters or starts its turn there has to make a con save or take our Halo of Spores damage, which I will remind you would be 2 dice because we would be in our symbiotic entity form. The downside is that while it's active, we can't use our Halo of Spores reaction, but this is effectively using it multiple times without consuming our reaction, so I think it's okay. We get one more cantrip here too. Mage Hand, I guess. None of them really grab me. Similarly, I don't want any 6th level spells, so we'll move on to buffing our Constitution by 2 at 12th level. I know I said we'd be getting something to make us near immortal, and it's coming, but I still want that little bit of extra HP. Speaking of, there actually is a 7th level spell that I want, Regenerate. It takes a minute to cast, but we instantly heal 4d8 plus 15 HP, and we heal 1 HP every round for an hour, so that's 10 HP every minute, or 600 HP total. At 14th level, our Halo of Spores damage caps out at 1d10, and our shadowy body makes us immune to being blinded, deafened, frightened, or poisoned. Also, any critical hit against us becomes just a normal hit, unless we're incapacitated somehow. The last spell that I want, and actually one of the main draws of Druid for this build, is Tsunami, to release Restraint level 0 and call forth an ocean of blood and zombies. We summon a wave that's 300 feet long, 300 feet tall, and 50 feet thick. When it appears, any creatures in the area take 6d10 bludgeoning damage on a failed strength save, half on a success. The wave moves 50 feet away from us each turn, carrying anyone caught in it. Any creatures it catches have to make a strength save or take 5d10 bludgeoning. The wall does get 50 feet shorter each turn that it moves, and it deals 1d10 less damage until it vanishes after the 6th round. We'll bump our strength to 18 at 16th level, ignore 17th level since we don't want any 9th level spells, and move on to 18th level for Timeless Body. This is how we keep our youthful complexion, since we only age 1 year for every 10 that pass. We can also cast spells while we're a bat, as beast spells lets us ignore their somatic and verbal components. Our last ASI will cap off our monstrous strength, then we'll pick up Archdruid at our capstone, the 20th level of Druid. We can ignore any components of our spells that don't have a cost, both in our wild shape and our normal form, but more importantly, we go from 2 uses of wild shape to unlimited uses. So now that the build is complete, the question is, how good is it? Well, Turns out unlimited wild shaping is busted as hell. That means that with our symbiotic entity, we can use our action to gain 80 temporary HP every turn that we're in combat. Those don't stack, of course, they just refresh, but that still means that an enemy has to get through 80 HP before they even scratch us. Then, if they succeed, they have to do it again on the next turn. Forever. Without even the hope of benefiting from crits. Oh, and this didn't come up much in the build, but druids do also have healing spells. We talked about regenerate, but we also just get cure wounds, which we can use with any of our spell slots. We also have very good mobility, since we can run on walls and ceilings, or, just turn into a bat and cast Longstrider to get a 40-foot flying speed. On the other hand, our wisdom is abysmal, so our save DCs are unfortunately pretty low. This especially hurts our Halo of Spores, since that doesn't do anything at all on a successful save, and it eats up our reaction if we aren't using Spreading Spores. The other concern is action economy. At high level play, it actually isn't unthinkable for us to face an enemy that can blow through our 80 temp HP every turn, or, at least enough of it that we want to replenish it. And that uses up our actions, so we could get pinned down doing nothing but refreshing our temporary HP every turn. Now, whether they can keep that up forever is a different story, so it might just turn into a battle of attrition, which tends to favor us pretty heavily. And that's Alucard. I hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please let me know. If you haven't seen the non-podcast version of Alucard, make sure to check that out too. Thank you all for watching, friends. I will see y'all later.